Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week was filled with news about upcoming iPhone 13, iPads, iMacs, MacBooks, and more. So this is your news update for the week of February 28th, 2021, although I'm recording this on March 1st. And the first thing is Apple is being faced with another lawsuit, this time from the Portuguese Consumer Protection Agency, stating that Apple slowed down older phones, such as the iPhone 6, 6 Plus, 6S, or 6S Plus like I have here, in order to get people to upgrade to newer devices. We've seen lawsuits similar to this in Italy before, and whether or not anything comes of them is hard to say, but they're stating that Apple slowed them down knowingly in order to get users to update. Apple has obviously denied this many times, but we'll have to wait and see the outcomes of these potential lawsuits. So it's kind of interesting. They're also facing an investigation by the US government to maybe investigate sign-in with Apple, which seems kind of odd to me, saying that basically Apple could be a monopoly, forcing them to keep that data private instead of giving it to applications like Facebook, for example. So sign in with Apple is something that Apple wants all applications to have. Application makers are probably not happy about this because they want your data to be able to better either serve you ads or something else. And so this is a potential investigation that may happen, and hopefully we get our privacy. I really appreciate that sort of sign-in with Apple setup so that I don't have to share my data with every single app that I use. So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Now this week, like I said, was filled with iPhone 13 news, and the iPhone 13 is said to come out probably in September, like we would expect. And according to Ming Chi Kuo, he said that the iPhone 13 will have a 120 hertz display, Pro Motion, just like we expect on the Pro models. So maybe iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max. It would have that LTPO display, and it would also have a smaller notch. Now, we're not sure if it will shrink horizontally or vertically or both, but it should be smaller or possibly not even there. So it depends. There's been some more recent news from today stating that it may not even be there to begin with, and it may have a hole punch display similar to that of what Samsung has, for example. So that would be really interesting to see, and I would welcome that. I actually have that on a Samsung device. This is a Note 20 Ultra with a hole punch display, and I think that looks really good, and I've gotten used to it on this device. I would love to see something similar on an iPhone and be able to use Face ID or maybe even Touch ID on the power button. Now, other than that, all iPhones are said to have a smaller notch or no notch, like I said, and they should all ship with a Lightning port this year with the iPhone 13s. So maybe no portless iPhone this year, but I'll talk about that in a moment. And also it may ship with a larger battery, according to Ming Chi Kuo. I think a lot of people would appreciate that, even if it was slightly thicker to give us a larger battery, maybe a 5,000 milliamp hour battery to get us maybe a couple days use. I would love to see that, and maybe we'll see that. Now, according to John Prosser and then later Webbush analysts, they're saying that iPhone 13 will have a 1 terabyte storage option as well, and that they'll also all include LiDAR for the cameras. This makes a lot of sense since LiDAR is used for autofocus at night and also for augmented reality, and Apple's supposed to make a big push with augmented reality, so it makes a lot of sense to have that. Now, there's been some conflicting information about portless iPhones, but Apple's at least looking at it. And according to Appleosophy, they've said that Apple's preparing a portless iPhone and how you would restore that, for example. So, for example, there's a few different ways you could do this. You could have an internet recovery by pushing a couple different button combinations, and that would be similar to what you get on a Mac. So you could restore over the internet and it would fully wipe the phone. You could also have a built-in version of that where it would just have the operating system on a different sort of area and then be able to recover it. And then also you could do something where it would attach to your computer over the local network, similar to what Apple did with the early MacBook Air, where maybe you wanted a CD and wanted to install something and the MacBook Air didn't have a drive. It would just show up on your network in the Finder, for example, and then you would be able to restore it that way. And then finally, it said that maybe in the SIM card tray on the iPhone, there'll be a port. So if you had to send it in, Apple could diagnose it and fix it that way. Or maybe in an Apple store where they could pop the SIM card tray out, pop in their own SIM card that had some connectors on it with maybe pogo pins, and then connect to it and fix it. The Apple Watch has a similar setup, but you have to send it in to do that. And it's actually hidden underneath the strap. So underneath here, there's a little port, and then you can access that depending on which watch you have. They can access the port, and then diagnose and fix it accordingly. So we may see something like that with the iPhone in the future, but Apple's at least working on it right now, and we may not see anything for a little while. Now, when it comes to the iPhone SE, there's some conflicting information as to when we'll see the next one. According to Macotakara, we may see it as soon as April 2021 or early next month to launch alongside the new AirPods. So AirPods 3 or AirPods Pro 2 or both, and we could see a new iPhone SE with a larger display and then Touch ID on the fingerprint sensor potentially with those touch gestures that we have with the newer iPhones. I would welcome that sort of change. A larger iPhone similar to the iPhone 8 but with Touch ID on the side makes a lot of sense today, and I would love to see that. But then Ming Chi Kuo is saying we won't see an iPhone SE replacement until 2022. So it's hard to say which one is correct here. We'll have to wait and see, but I would welcome a larger one and then maybe a replacement for both next year. But right now it looks like maybe next year at the earliest. It's just hard to say with conflicting information. That would launch alongside redesigned AirPods. I've talked about that last week, where we would have new AirPods Pro and new AirPods in general that would both have spatial audio, and then the noise canceling would remain on the Pro side. So that would be really great to see. Now, according to Ennostar, which is a Taiwan-based company, they're said to have begun production on the next gen iPad Pro with a mini LED backlit display. So they're supposedly manufacturing the displays, which would give us maybe brighter displays, but also deeper blacks, as they would have mini LEDs for the backlight and be able to better control different zones for that. It's said to only be for the iPad Pro 12.9 inch, and it's said to launch late first quarter or second quarter. So that could be March or maybe April. So that makes sense going along with those AirPods launch as well. So we could see that very, very soon. Now, when it comes to iOS 14.5 Beta 2 gains an update, which I thought was pretty interesting that people hadn't found until recently. If you have PowerBeats Pro, they will now show up in Find My. So if you're using Find My, we'll go into that. And within Find My, you can see that it's located, I can play a sound, and it has directions. So this has been updated to include it in Find My now with 14.5 Beta 2. Now, as far as iOS 14.5 Beta 3, I would expect it as soon as tomorrow, Tuesday or Wednesday. Generally, that's when Apple has been releasing them lately, and we'll have some updates, and I'll cover that as well. I would expect a public release of iOS 14.5 a little bit later in March based on what we've been seeing lately. So if Apple releases AirPods Pro, for example, in March, along with an iPad, I would expect some sort of update around that time. Although Apple has been really random in how they've been releasing betas lately and public releases. So I wouldn't be so sure about every single date, but at least expect a beta sometime this week based on what they've done every single week for years and years. Now, as far as MacBooks, there's been some exciting news coming from that, and we can expect to see new MacBooks this year as Apple transitions everything to Apple Silicon. So, for example, it's said that we're going to have new MacBook Pros. So we'll have a 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro with Apple's new silicon in it, along with mini LED displays in the second half of 2021, according to Digitimes. So this is the 13-inch MacBook Pro. It's one of my favorite devices Apple has ever made lately. It's super fast, compact, has great battery life, and just seems to last days for battery when I'm using it regularly. It edits footage very fast, and we could see a larger display with them pushed out more to the bezels, for example, and maybe getting rid of the touch bar. So I would welcome that. I don't really use the touch bar, but I know some people will be disappointed by that. But the most exciting news about it is an update to the ports. So we only have 2 USB/Thunderbolt ports here, but we could get many more. So it's said that we're going to get our SD card back, as well as the ability to have HDMI on the side like we've had in the past. This makes a lot of sense. It's a very commonly used port, and it's probably what most people buy the dongles for if you want to use an SD card, for example. It's a pain to have to use a dongle for that. It makes a lot of sense. SD cards are here to stay for quite some time, even though there's other standards such as XQD and things like that. But right now, I think it makes a lot of sense to bring back that SD card port and HDMI, as well as some additional ports as well, if we see that. I don't think we'll see new USB ports, but we should see these later this year as Apple continues to update their Macs. Now, Apple continues to be working on what looks to be new finishes for the MacBook. So right now, this is aluminum in space gray, but we could see titanium brought back as we have with the watch, for example. So we have titanium watches, but when you have bigger surfaces like this, they can have fingerprints, especially on metals such as titanium. A new patent found by Patently Apple seems to refer to coatings they're working on to keep those fingerprints off the metal. So we could have some sort of coating similar to oleophobic coatings we have on displays to help with fingerprints as well. So when you touch the back of this display, for example, or the back of the iPhone 12 Pro Max, because it's a matte finish, it doesn't show a lot of fingerprints. We could see something very similar to that on upcoming MacBooks, and I would definitely welcome a new titanium MacBook. It would be thin, strong, light, and also super durable. So hopefully we see something like that. Now, something I'm looking forward to them updating very much is the new iMac. Apple is said to be coming out with one very soon, and the iMac design has been here for a very long time. And according to John Prosser, it could get colors again like we have with the iPad Air. It would look similar to a Pro Display XDR, but have Apple's new silicon in it, maybe a new GPU, graphics processing unit, to make it even faster than what we have with the MacBooks, for example. So I really welcome something like that. The Pro Display XDR is really great to look at, and having something like that in iMac form would be even better. So hopefully we'll see those soon in those colors. What color do you like best? Let me know in the comments below. Now, Patently Apple has continued to find patents showing that Apple is working on things like AR and VR glasses. This time around, they found something that looks like an accessory that you would slide onto your fingers to help control the display with gestures. So as you have glasses on or maybe a headset, you could swipe, you could pinch to zoom, things like that, and you could use your fingers to do that where the headset would track that. Similar to what you would have with an Oculus now with a controller, but you would use your fingers to do all of the different gestures and motions. And if they can get this right, it could be really great. And so that's all of the news this past week. Quite a few things about the upcoming iPhone, quite a few things about Macs I'm very excited about. What are you most excited about? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.